I think one of the most confusing things is when you find yourself in a situation where you are in a relationship with someone. It could be a romantic relationship, it could be a family relationship, maybe it's your sibling or your parent or even a colleague, and you guys are very close. And every time you confront them about something that they have done, which is harmful or damaging to you or to the relationship, they threaten to kill themselves if you leave them. So their automatic response to any confrontation is, if you leave me or if you continue speaking to me that way or if you do X, Y, and Z, I am going to kill myself. That can be a very confusing experience for most people. And that's what I want to address today. I want to help you understand what you're supposed to do in these situations when people threaten to kill themselves. How are you supposed to deal with yourself? How are you supposed to deal with them so that this does not continue to be your reality? And if they kill themselves, is it your fault? One of the ways to look at this issue is to focus on the side of the person who is threatening you with a suicide. So most of the time, you'll find that people who threaten suicide to take their own life, most of the time they have very serious attachment issues from their childhood. In their childhood, they were abandoned by a parent or a caregiver, somebody who was very close to them. And this abandonment, of course, was emotionally damaging to them. It made them feel less, it made them feel unworthy and rejected and all these things. So if in this relationship you threaten to leave them or you threaten to hold them accountable to things or you just make them feel the same, if they feel the same emotional pain they felt in their childhood, their times of rejection and abandonment, when they feel that, they assume that you are going to reject them, you're going to abandon them. That threat makes them react in ways that are protective of them. They try to find the most protective thing, the thing that can remove the emotional pain they're feeling right now. What is that thing that can remove that emotional pain? It is trying to amass as much attention as possible from you, as much care and love and validation from you. And they understand that if they do something as threatening as suicide, you are likely to pay attention because they want to stop feeling the emotional pain that is coming from the fear of rejection and the fear of abandonment that you're threatening by saying that you're going to leave the relationship. For them, they latch on to the most appropriate thing that they can think of, and that is talking about suicide. Because we all know that every time somebody brings up the conversation of suicide, most people will sit up, most people will pay attention. If you say you're going to kill yourself, most people will sit up and pay attention to what you're saying because it's a serious issue. And I agree, talking about suicide is always a serious issue. People need to pay attention when conversations of suicide come up. Don't dismiss. So for them, going back to the attachment issue, this is a response. They are trying to protect themselves. Every time they're threatened with something emotionally painful, such as somebody walking out of the relationship, their response is to latch on to the most powerful thing they can think of, and that powerful thing is threatening to kill themselves. So you can look at it from that point of view and understand they are not always reacting with their best foot forward. Most of the time they are reacting from an emotional place, and that emotional place that can get their emotional needs met is threatening suicide. So that is one aspect. That's one way of looking at this issue. Something else that we need to think about is the fact that when a person threatens you with suicide, and even if it's coming from this emotional place where they are afraid of rejection and abandonment, they're not being malicious. Most of the time, this is not malice. It's often desperation. They are desperate to quiet the emotional turmoil that is going on inside them every time that they are threatened with a person leaving. And so they're reacting out of desperation. They are reacting to get that emotional need met. And they're trying to do what they think will make them feel better, something that will keep you around. And often, a threat like suicide will make most people think twice. And you have had other people even threaten to harm themselves or kill you if you leave. Not because they are necessarily bad people, but because they're acting out of desperation. Remember, this person is not acting from their logical mind. They're acting from their emotional mind. They're acting from a place of emotions that are heightened, and these emotions need to be quelled. They don't have enough emotional resources to learn how to deal with their pain without doing things that are extreme. If you look at it from that perspective, you will understand that this person is actually suffering. I know most people say that people who are threatening suicide are attention seeking, and I understand that sentiment. And I also say that even if they are attention seeking, it is understandable why they would be seeking this attention. They are desperately trying to reach out for help because they don't know what to do with whatever they are going through. And their most effective way of reaching out for help could be a suicide threat. It could be something that they are thinking. If I talk about something that is scary as suicide, people will sit up and listen because I am suffering and I am trying to figure out how else can I meet this emotional need? How else can people pay attention to me and help me deal with the emotional pain that I am in? Understanding that this person is struggling, they are coming from a difficult place, they are going through something difficult, and having a little bit of empathy towards people who have suicidal thoughts and people who are giving these suicidal threats might go a long way in helping the person actually not kill themselves. If you react by shouting at them or screaming at them or telling them that they are bad people or whatever any other reaction you may think of that might influence them to actually take their lives, that is a guarantee that they will actually take their life. As much as you might feel angry and frustrated that this person is threatening you like this with their suicide, don't react with the same emotional mind that they are reacting with. Be the one to react with the logical mind. Be the one to meet them in the emotional place. One thing we cannot fail to talk about when we are talking about this issue of threatening suicide is the issue of emotional abuse and control. People who use this tactic are often exacting an element of emotional control on you and manipulation. They are trying to manipulate you to stay in the relationship. They are intimidating you with their behavior so that you can stay in the relationship even if the relationship is hurting you. And if you look closely, you are going to find that there's likelihood that there's a pattern of manipulation and control that has been happening all along. There's been behaviors from the very beginning that were controlling and manipulative, and they kept escalating pole, and they have grown into this big thing where this person has gotten to a place where they are threatening you with suicide because they know that is like the ultimate kind of threat that you can give another person, right? So if I have been controlling you pole and it has not been working, or it has been working pole and I want to push the limits, I can try to push the limits to the extent where I am threatening with suicide. And sometimes they even threaten with killing you and then killing themselves. And we have seen these things. We say that abuse, emotional abuse, and abuse in general, it does not start from day one. The first time you meet this person is not the first time that this person becomes abusive. And even if this is somebody that you've grown up with, even if this is somebody in your family, this is a family member that you're very close with, they don't start abusing you from day one. It's often kidogo pole. They start with a few behaviors that you allow to slide. You do not confront them, you do not bring up the issue, you sweep things under the rug. And then with time, they grow to learn that they can push the envelope, they can push the limits, and you're not going to react. So if they're operating with zero boundaries, they do not have the fear that there's anything that you're going to do. And so these suicide threats are an escalation. They're like the culmination. They're like the ultimate threat, the ultimate way to control you and to manipulate you. And if you give in to these threats without addressing the issue, without addressing this behavior, their next behaviors can be even more threatening and even more controlling. They are likely to do things that are even more scary, things that are more likely to make you stay with them, even if those things are hurtful to you, because they know that you're not going to leave. They have already threatened you with suicide and you have stayed. And you have not addressed the issue. The issue is not even just thing, it's about the fact that you have stayed and not addressed the issue. So they learn that you do not have boundaries. They learn that they can push the envelope as far as they want, and you're not going to do anything about this. And remember, we're also still holding on to the fact that they could have their own personal struggles from their childhood, their emotional wounds, their attachment wounds, their fears of rejection. But having all those things is not a justification for the behaviors that we do. Remember, there's something that we've always said. I think I've said this in several episodes. If you went through something difficult in your childhood, let's say you lived through a very difficult childhood with abusive parents or neglectful parents or whatever, you had a difficult childhood, you had a traumatic childhood. If that is your reality, yes, we cannot ignore that reality that you lived through when you were a child. But if you are an adult right now, it is your responsibility and your duty to make things better for yourself. So it gets to a point where now you have to take responsibility over your life, even if you grew up with a very damaging family, or you grew up in a family that put you through very traumatic situations. At the end of the day, as an adult, it is your responsibility to take up your life and give it a sense of direction. As I'm talking about the emotional abuse, I am not saying that these people are bad. I am saying that they are using tactics that have worked in the past. But these tactics are harmful, and they are harmful to individuals and to the relationship at large. Because there's no way you can tell me you are having a good time living with somebody who is threatening you, and especially threatening you with their own suicide or threatening to kill you if you leave them. There's no way you guys are having fun. There is no way. There might be small pockets of fun here and there. There might be pockets of contentment here and there, but I am sure you're always on edge. I am sure you guys are always walking on eggshells because you don't know what is going to trip this person off. You don't know what is going to make this person get triggered to act in the ways that they have been acting that are damaging to you and to the relationship. Even as you're talking about the emotional abuse, remember that there's no justification for it. People need to take responsibility for their behaviors. Here are some things that I need you to keep in mind as we discuss this topic. And the first important thing that you need to understand is that you are not responsible for the other person's life and their decisions and their choices. Even me as a therapist, I am not responsible for the person's life if they come to therapy. And even you as an individual, you are not responsible for the other person's life and their choices. That goes for everyone. Nobody is responsible for another person's life or their choices, unless, of course, it's a child, then that's different. But I'm talking about like adults in relationship. Nobody is responsible for another person's life and their choices. We all take responsibility for our lives. We all take responsibilities for our decisions. We all have the liberty to make the decisions that are in line with our values and our desires. So if this person who is threatening you with suicide is under the impression that suicide is the best way to deal with the heartbreak that they envision from the broken relationship with you, then the support they need is not the kind of support that you can offer them, to be honest. At the end of the day, you are not a mental health professional. And even if you are, and you're in a relationship with this person, you cannot be their mental health professional, right? At the end of the day, they have to make a decision for themselves. And right now they are in a situation where the best way they deal with difficult situations is going to the extremes, such as instead of addressing the pain they are in, they threaten suicide. And they are holding you hostage because they're making you responsible for whether they live or die. And I want to be the one to tell you that that is not your responsibility. Yes, they may place that responsibility on you, but it is upon you to not take it because that is not your responsibility. Over and over again, we have said in this suicide series that nobody has any other person's autonomy in their hands. Everybody gets to make decisions about their life. Whether you live or you die, that is a decision that you get to make when it comes to suicide. Of course, there are other situations where you don't get to decide whether you live or die, but I'm talking about suicide in particular. So I want to remind you that this is not your responsibility. You can help them, you can offer them the support that they need, you can try to connect them to resources, but it is not your responsibility. It is not for you to bear it. It's not for you to carry it in your heart that now this person, if they live, it's upon me. If they die, it's upon me. Because that is not real. That is not true. You can help them find professional support. You can help them deal with the distress that they are going through. Remember, we've spoken about distress in other episodes as part of the reasons why people take their own lives. So the distress can be very heavy. It can influence the decisions they make. And you can help them find professional support to help them deal with that distress. But that is not necessarily your role in the relationship to be the person who takes away their distress. Yes, you can help them. Yes, you can be there for them, but not at the expense of your life. You understand? It's supposed to be balanced. A relationship is supposed to be balanced. Every relationship is supposed to be balanced. And to be honest, I will understand if you're feeling guilty about this person killing themselves. Because the first thing that you think about is, if I had not left them, then they would be alive. They would not have killed themselves. I understand that sentiment. You're likely to think that if only you stick around long enough, maybe you can love them and care for them out of their suicidality. Sticking around and being with them and giving in to their demands makes you think that it is love, because if they are alive, then it means you have done your duty. They have not killed themselves because it was your responsibility to keep them alive and you only needed to stay around. But you need to understand that you can stay and do everything right and they will still take their own life. Staying does not guarantee that they will not kill themselves. If you respond to this person's threat of suicide by staying in the relationship, not addressing the issues and the threats themselves, you are reinforcing their behavior. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. You are reinforcing their behavior. And in future, they are likely to engage in more harmful things. They will try to do more desperate things than they have already done to show you how serious they are. Even at the slightest problem, the slightest confrontation, they will threaten suicide and other things. They will even threaten suicide and to kill you as well, or threaten to kill you and kill somebody else, or threaten other things. They will demand your compliance, even to things that are very, very hurtful to you, because they know that their threat of suicide and escalating dangerous behavior will keep you around. They have already learnt what buttons they can push. So you staying and you complying to what they say, what they need, what they demand, without addressing the underlying issues that are leading them to behave like this, is just a confirmation to them that they have control and power. And I know it feels very strange to say these things out loud. You might be thinking that this is not nice But it is in that niceness that people kill themselves, when you are not willing to have honest conversations with them, when you're not willing to confront them about their harmful behavior, when you're not willing to help them get the professional support that they need because you're trying to be nice, then we are keeping them in danger. We're keeping them in situations where they're likely to kill themselves. This is not an issue of being nice. This is an issue of being honest and being kind, but kindness with truth. Remember, this relationship is two-way. You get something out of the relationship, they get something out of the relationship. If it is becoming one way where it is only demands, and threats of suicide, then it becomes a problem. So even you as an individual who maybe is threatening other people with suicide, try to think about how your pain is hurting other people other than you. And maybe if you're the person who has been threatening other people with suicide, consider getting professional help, because that can be very, very helpful. Speak to a mental health professional, because that is literally their job. They are there to help you deal with difficult situations such as this. And I promise you, threatening suicide is not going to get you the results you think it will. The love and care and attention that you're looking for, the love and acceptance that you're looking for from the people around you, is not going to come from you threatening them with suicide. If anything, it's going to come from you being honest about the things that you need and inviting them into your life openly without threatening them or holding them hostage just to get the love and the attention. So think about it in that aspect. Think about it from that point of view. I hope you remember that thing we spoke about in one of the episodes about passive suicidal thoughts. When this person is walking around with passive suicidal thoughts and they believe that if you leave them or if anything happens to them, they can kill themselves, these passive suicidal thoughts are likely to put them in very harmful situations or very risky places where they could endanger their lives without even knowing. If passive suicidal thoughts are just hanging out in their mind at any given point and they don't get that professional help that I'm encouraging you to get them, your compliance won't protect them. You staying in the relationship because they said if you leave, they're going to kill themselves is not going to protect them from the passive suicidal thoughts that are hanging out in their mind. They could still end up taking their own lives, even if it's not because of something that you did. You could still stay in the relationship and then they still kill themselves. And it's because of that thing that we said about passive suicidal thoughts. These passive suicidal thoughts that are at the back of your mind can lead you to do very risky things, can lead you to do very harmful behaviors. So again, understand, your compliance does not protect a person who is suicidal. Your compliance does not make them less suicidal. If they say don't tell somebody else about my suicidal thoughts, you not telling somebody else about their suicidal thoughts does not make the suicidal thoughts go away. It does not protect them from killing themselves. And that's why I keep saying over and over again, you can't deal with suicidality in secret. You can't hide these thoughts. If you do, you're leaving this person in a very vulnerable position where they could potentially kill themselves, even if they were not intending to. Like even if it was passive suicidal thoughts at the back of their mind. And I encourage you to go and listen to that episode on passive suicidal thoughts. I think it was episode 1. You're going to understand how these passive suicidal thoughts impact a person's life and how they eventually push them to take their own life without even thinking about it. Question that we started with, the question that we opened with, what do you do when somebody threatens to take their own life, to kill themselves? If you leave or if you do X, Y, and Z, whatever their situation is, they will tell you, if you do X, Y, and Z, I am going to kill myself. What are you supposed to do? So here's the simple, straightforward answer. You need to get this person professional help. You need to get this person to a place where they can speak to somebody else and not just you. You should not hide those suicidal thoughts that they are having and those suicidal behaviors that they are threatening you with. Get support from others. Involve their family members if they have family members. Involve them. Involve your family members. Involve your friends. Involve their friends. Involve your mutual friends. Let other people know. Don't work in isolation when it comes to suicide. And this is something that is told even to mental health professionals. Even us, when you're working with people who are suicidal, we don't work in isolation. If I'm having a suicidal client, I will not just work alone. I will involve a psychiatrist, I will involve a psychologist, other mental health professionals to get their support, to get their understanding, to get their feedback, to get their consultation. I will involve the family members of the person who is suicidal. I will involve their friends. I will involve people that they put in their suicide safety plan. And suicide safety planning is something that we've spoken about. There's a whole episode on that. You can check it out. When somebody threatens to kill themselves, do not work in isolation. Start rallying people around you. Start rallying people around them. If it's family members, involve family members. Call them, tell them, hey, by the way, I am here with your so-and-so, and they are threatening suicide if I do X, Y, and Z. I need your help. I need you to come and talk to them. I need you to find a way to be here so that we can discuss this issue. I need you to talk to them and hear what their issues are, right? Involve their friends and majorly involve a professional. There are many, many hospitals in Kenya that have mental health support in-house. If you go to Kenyatta, there is a mental health wing. If you go to, okay, I don't know if it's a wing, but I know there's a mental health clinic in Kenyatta. If you go to Chiromo Hospital, you'll find a psychologist. You'll find other professionals within the hospital. If you go to Mathari Hospital, there's mental health support. There are so many, many hospitals, and I can't list them all of them because there's a whole list in the description where you can check out all these resources. You can call somebody else. You should not be working with this person in isolation. Remind this person that every time that they threaten suicide, you are going to rally help. You are going to get outside support. You are not going to comply with their demands just because they are making those demands, especially when they threaten you with suicide. Remind them that you will, every single time that they do it, you are going to call help so that they know that they cannot use that threat and isolate you like that. Because most of the time, as you've said, when there's an element of emotional abuse, they are trying to isolate you so that you can feel powerless. But if you have other people, if you put this thing in the light, if you do not work in secret, if you do not hide this behavior, then this person is likely to start accepting that they cannot use this manipulation technique on you. That is the long and short of it. If somebody is threatening to kill themselves, you need to rally external support. Don't work in isolation. Call other people. Bring in other resources. Take them to hospital. Go to the nearest clinic with them. Right now, I know it's kidogo difficult, especially with the fact that suicide is a crime in our country. So reporting them to the police might get them arrested. But I don't know. I honestly think when worst come to worst, you have to take advanced measures. And if it becomes so serious that they're not willing to listen to anybody else, they're not willing to listen to the doctors, they're not willing to listen to a family member, a friend, they're not willing to listen to you to have a calm conversation, they're not willing to have this encouragement from other sources, you might have to report them to the police. And I don't think anybody will judge you for that. And even if they judge you for that, there's nothing you can do. Your hands are tied. You really need to protect yourself, and you really need to protect them at the same time. And if protecting them means getting them put in a hospital, that might be your only option. I am not encouraging it. I am not endorsing it. I am saying that we have to be realistic about what can be done. So you're not going to put yourself in a difficult situation, in a threatening situation, and eventually, if they kill themselves in the house with you and you did not report to anybody, then it becomes a very tricky situation, right? Seek external support. Seek external support. Do not work in isolation when it comes to somebody threatening with suicide. This is the information I have at this point, and I hope it has given you a little bit of insight into some of the things that you can think about when you think about suicide, threats from somebody that is close to you. There's a lot more that can be said about this, and I am sure that you have more questions. Please leave them in the comment section, and I'll check it out and I'll respond to you as soon as I can. This is a very sensitive topic. If you or somebody you know is having suicidal thoughts or is struggling with mental health issues, again, there's a resources link in the description. Please check it out and contact those resources. Don't work in isolation. Don't stay isolated. If you are the person that is threatening other people with suicide, please accept help. I know it feels scary. Whatever emotions you're going through right now feels scary and overwhelming, but I promise you there is help that is available. If you're the one who thinks that if you threaten with suicide, people are going to listen to you, they're going to care for you, I promise you there are other ways of having your needs met. Suicide is not the best option. There are other options that are more effective. People will rally towards you if only you give them the opportunity to come to your rescue, to come to your support, to offer you the love and attention and validation that you need. But you can't threaten them with suicide every single time just to get your way. There's a likelihood that I have forgotten to mention something that is important. Please leave it in the comments. I am happy to hear your perspective and opinions about this. And I am happy to discuss more in the comment section. So let me know, or you can email me if you have anything to add to this conversation. I would be glad to hear your opinion. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself and take care of your mental health. I will see you on the next episode.